Welcome to the debate. Today, we are taking on perhaps the single most pervasive anxiety in American life right now. The question isn't just who's going to win the next election. The question that seems to lurk behind every headline, every dinner table argument is, will the system actually survive it? So we're asking, is American democracy actually collapsing, or is the machinery doing exactly what it was designed to do, conflict and all?
It really is the question of the decade. And, to be clear, we aren't talking about mean tweets or cable news shouting matches. We are looking at the engine room of the republic. Is the constitutionally mandated machinery of the state, the Electoral College, the Senate, the Supreme Court, is it fundamentally obsolete? Is it rigged? Or is it just loud?
The stakes are, well, the peaceful transfer of power and the legitimacy of the law itself. I'm the advocate. I'll be arguing that the reports of democracy's death are greatly exaggerated. I believe the American system is resilient, it's self-correcting, and that what many call collapse is actually just the noise of a free society working through some very deep disagreements.
And I'm the dissenter. I'll be arguing that the dashboard lights are flashing red for a reason. I believe we're witnessing a structural failure, one where gerrymandering, unlimited capital, and frankly, an obsolete electoral map have severed the link between the will of the people and the actions of their government.
All right, let's get into it. So I'll start with the case for resilience. When people say the system is broken, what they usually mean is, I'm not getting the policy outcomes I want. But if you look at the actual mechanics, in the last few cycles, we have seen historically high voter turnout. The highest in a century. We saw the system withstand an unprecedented stress test on January 6th, where the institutions, the courts, the vice presidency, the certification process, they held the line. Look, the system was designed by James Madison and the framers to be inefficient. It was designed to force friction so that no single faction could steamroll the others. Gridlock isn't a bug, it's a feature meant to prevent tyranny. The engine is loud, yes, it's ugly, but it is running.
I think that's a dangerous confusion of functioning with surviving. My argument is that the feedback loop is broken. In a healthy democracy, if the public demands change, the government, it responds. We don't have that. We have what scholars call minoritarian rule. Due to the geography of the Senate and the capping of the House, a shrinking minority of the population holds a veto over the majority. We have gerrymandering that has turned the House of Representatives into, an incumbent protection racket. When you have a system where politicians pick their voters through data modeling, rather than voters picking politicians, you don't have a messy democracy. You have a rigged oligarchy. The engine might be running, sure, but the steering wheel is disconnected.
Okay, you use the word rigged. That is the core of the populism we see on both the left and the right. So let's dissect that. Let's talk about representation and the map. You claim politicians pick their voters. You're talking about gerrymandering.
I am, and I want to get really specific about the mechanics here because it's not just a case of, both sides do it. It has become a science. Look at the efficiency gap. It's a metric political scientists use to measure wasted votes. In dozens of states, district lines are drawn with such surgical precision using modern GIS software and voter data that the general election is, for all intents and purposes, mathematically irrelevant. They pack the opposition into one district and then crack the rest across 5 others. And the result? The only election that matters is the primary. And who votes in primaries? The most ideological 10% of the base. This creates a structural incentive for extremism. If a representative compromises, they get primaried from the flank. That is not a Madisonian feature. That is a modern distortion that makes governance impossible.
Okay, I'll grant you that the primary system creates polarization, and the technology has made redistricting more precise. But I strongly push back on the idea that the map is static or rigged permanently. If gerrymandering were this fatal flaw ensuring permanent incumbent power, control of the House wouldn't flip. Yet look at the last 15 years. The gavel changed hands in 2010, 2018, and 2022. The system is still responsive to wave elections. And what's more, you're ignoring the incumbent disadvantage we're seeing recently. Voters are angry and they are kicking people out. So the feedback loop exists, it just requires a higher threshold of public frustration to activate.
But look at the margins required to activate it. I mean, to win a bare majority in the House, one party often has to win the national popular vote by 3, 4, even 5%. That is a massive handicap. It effectively says one voter in a rural district is worth 1.5 voters in a suburban one. And this brings us to the Electoral College. We are in an era where it is statistically probable, not just possible, but probable, to win the presidency while losing the popular vote by millions. How long can a democracy sustain legitimacy when the person with the most votes loses? That violates the basic one-person, one-vote principle that modern citizens expect.
But the United States was never designed as a pure majoritarian democracy. It's a federalist republic, and that distinction matters. The Electoral College forces candidates to build a broad geographic coalition, not just, run up the score in high-density population centers. If we move to a national popular vote, entire regions of the country, the agricultural interior specifically, would be politically flown over. They would just cease to exist in the eyes of the executive branch. The crisis of legitimacy you're so worried about would just shift. Instead of coastal liberals feeling disenfranchised, you'd have the entire heartland feeling occupied by the cities. The system forces a balance between land and people. It's messy, but it keeps the union together.
See, that's the classic defense, but does it really hold up to the data? Candidates already ignore the quote-unquote heartland. They go to 7 swing states. They don't go to rural Wyoming or rural Vermont. They go to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin over and over and over again. It doesn't create a national coalition. It creates a laser focus on specific zip codes in swing states. And it distorts policy because we end up subsidizing industries in those swing states, like fracking or ethanol, while ignoring everyone else. It's just arbitrary.
Arbitrary or just the current rules of the game. Changing the rules because one side is currently at a geographic disadvantage, well, that feels more like a power grab than a reform. It's worth noting that these swing states change over decades. But I want to pivot to the fuel that powers this machine, because you mentioned oligarchy earlier. Let's talk about money and information.
Right. You cannot discuss the collapse of American democracy without talking about Citizens United. We have allowed unlimited dark money to flood the zone. But I want to go deeper than just corporations buying ads. I want to talk about the epistemic crisis. Democracy assumes a rational voter with access to a set of shared facts. We no longer have that. We have an algorithmic media environment, social media feeds, YouTube rabbit holes that is designed to maximize engagement through outrage.
So your argument is that the voters are being brainwashed? That seems a bit patronizing to the electorate.
Brainwash is too strong, but manipulated? Absolutely. We are seeing the rise of what's called negative partisanship. People don't vote for their guy. They vote against the caricature of the other guy that their algorithm feeds them. And now, throw generative AI into this mix. Deepfakes, synthetic audio. We are approaching a point where we literally cannot verify reality. If we can't agree on what happened, on the basic facts on the ground, how can we have a debate? If I show you a video of a candidate taking a bribe, and you can plausibly claim it's AI, accountability is dead.
I think this is where the doom loop narrative gets ahead of the reality. First, on money. Look at the actual data from recent elections. The candidate with the most money does not always win. In fact, we've seen billionaire self-funders, think Michael Bloomberg, spend hundreds of millions and get absolutely nowhere. We've seen massive war chests from established incumbents lose to insurgents raised on small dollar donations. The internet has democratized fundraising. It's not just the Koch brothers and Soros anymore. It's millions of $20 recurring donations. That is democratic participation, not oligarchy.
But that just amplifies the polarization, though. Small dollar donors are often the most ideological. They pay for performance art, not for governance. They donate when a politician says something crazy on TV, not when they pass a highway bill.
It's still participation. And regarding the epistemic crisis, look, I trust the voter more than you do. Every time a new medium appears, the printing press, radio, TV, elites scream that it will destroy the rational voter. And every single time, society adapts. We develop immune systems. Voters are already skeptical of AI. They are skeptical of slick ads. The marketplace of ideas is chaotic, yes. There is junk in the aisles, but the alternative, having some ministry of truth or tech CEOs deciding what information is safe for us, that is far more dangerous to democracy than a few deep fakes.
I think that's incredibly optimistic. We aren't talking about a printing press. We are talking about military-grade psychological targeting pointed at grandma. And it's not just the ads, it's the erosion of shared institutions. When the media, science, and academia are all painted as partisan scams, there is no referee left. And a game without a referee ends in a brawl. That's what we're seeing.
But who appoints the referee? That's the problem. In a free society, we are the referees. It's exhausting, but it's the job. But this leads to the symptom of all this: gridlock and polarization. You said earlier the system isn't responding.
It isn't. I mean, just look at the Senate filibuster. We have a 60-vote threshold to pass almost anything. This means a party can win the presidency, the House, and have a majority in the Senate and still not be able to govern. This creates a vetocracy. And when voters give a party power and that party literally cannot deliver on its promises because of procedural, archaic rules, voters become cynical. They start thinking voting doesn't change anything, so maybe we need a strong man to break the system. Gridlock leads directly to authoritarianism because people prefer a dictator who gets things done over a democracy that does nothing.
I completely disagree with that causation. The filibuster forces consensus. It prevents a slim majority, say 51% of the country, from radically rewriting the social contract for the other 49% every 4 years. Imagine the instability if every time the gavel flipped, healthcare was nationalized then privatized, taxes were doubled then halved. The system is designed to be slow. It requires a supermajority for big changes. If you can't get 60 votes, well, maybe your idea just isn't popular enough yet. The Senate is the cooling saucer. It's supposed to kill bad ideas, even if it kills some good ones too.
Or maybe the opposition is incentivized to make you fail. I mean, Mitch McConnell famously said his top priority was making Obama a one-term president. The incentive structure isn't compromise to pass laws. The incentive is block everything so the other side looks incompetent. And the structure of the Senate, giving Wyoming the same power as California, it just exacerbates this. It empowers an obstructionist minority. You call it stability. I call it paralysis. And paralysis in a fast-moving world with climate change, AI, geopolitical threats is a death sentence.
But the alternative is the pendulum of vengeance, where every 4 years we try to destroy the previous administration's work. That destroys trust faster than gridlock does.
So we're stuck between paralysis and vengeance. That sounds like a system in collapse to me. So let's talk solutions. If you think the system is fine, do we just coast? Because I have a list of repairs.
I don't think we coast. I believe in maintenance. But let's hear your reboot.
Okay, first, ranked choice voting and nonpartisan primaries. We have to break the lock of the party extremes. If a candidate has to appeal to a broad majority to win, the performative rage just doesn't work. Alaska's doing this, it's working. Second, end the filibuster. If a party wins, let them govern. If the voters don't like it, they can vote them out. But we need accountability, not excuses. And third, Supreme Court reform, term limits. The court has become a super legislature that creates law for decades with no check. It's undemocratic.
Okay, here's my problem with that list. It's all engineered to help one side in the current political moment. Ending the filibuster right now would likely benefit progressives. Supreme Court term limits are a response to a conservative court. It feels less like structural reform and more like changing the rules because you're losing the game.
Ranked choice voting hurts entrenched incumbents on both sides. It threatens the Democrat machine in cities just as much as the Republican machine in rural areas.
RCV is interesting, I'll give you that, but it's complex. It can lead to ballot exhaustion and confusion. My solution is what I call status quo plus. We don't need to rewrite the Constitution. We need to reinvest in the software, the culture, first. Civics education. We stop teaching people how the government works, so they assume friction is failure. They think the president is a king who is just choosing not to act. Second, institutional defense. Leaders on both sides need to stop using the system is rigged as a campaign slogan. It's a cheap sugar high that destroys the body politic. And third, federalism.
Stop trying to solve everything in Washington. If California wants to be California and Texas wants to be Texas, let them. Lower the stakes of national politics.
Lowering the stakes is easy to say, but when we are talking about fundamental rights, the stakes are national. You can't have a country where your civil rights depend on which side of a state line you're standing on. And asking politicians to unilaterally disarm and stop using rigged rhetoric when it works, that's asking for a miracle. The structure dictates the behavior. You can't just lecture people into being better. You have to build a system where being better is the winning strategy. And right now, being an arsonist is the winning strategy.
But if you tear down the structure to stop the arsonist, you've just done their job for them. That's the paradox. You want to save the village by burning it down to build a new one.
I want to renovate the house before the roof caves in. We're running on an operating system written in 1787. It's okay to patch it.
We are nearing the end of our time, and we need to land this plane. We've covered the mechanics of voting, the flow of information, and the gridlock of the Senate.
And we haven't solved it, but we've diagnosed it.
My closing argument is this. Don't mistake the noise for the signal. American democracy has always been on the verge of collapse. Read the newspapers from 1800, 1860, 1968. It always feels like the end of the world. But the genius of the system is its elasticity. It bends, it stretches, it absorbs shock. The danger isn't the structure. The danger is our loss of faith in it. If we convince ourselves it's broken, we will break it. The system works if we show up, vote, and accept that we won't always get our way.
And my closing argument is, nostalgia is not a strategy. We are operating an 18th century machine in a 21st century world. The metrics, trust, efficiency, representation are objectively failing. We have a system that amplifies the voice of land over people, of capital over labor, and of rage over reason. To save the democratic ideal, we have to be willing to change the democratic mechanics. We need a reboot, not just a paint job.
That tension between preservation and renovation is the defining debate of our time.
And it's a debate we need to have without screaming at each other.
So, we want to leave you with a question to mull over. If you could change one structural rule of American politics, just one, what would it be? And would that change actually fix the problem, or would it just help your team win?
Think about it. Thanks for listening to The Debate.